What's up, YouTube? I've actually done this video so many times. This is my third recording. So I watch a video and I see exactly how they do their setup, and it looks a little bit better. So hopefully this one I just post it. I know I made my first video where I say that my process of trying to make it better before posting hinders me from actually posting. So again, I'm gonna try to make that first step by actually just making one. And today's video is talking about it's about Maddie Hapoya's video of the most underrated camera 2019. This was this was almost a month ago. I know it would have been much more relevant to post it, the day of or day after or soon after, right after that video was posted. But what I want to say was that before I pose my argument, and yes, I do disagree with what he said, but before I pose my argument, I want to say as a disclaimer, I am a subscriber of his channel. I actually find his content pretty good, and one thing is that I believe that he creates some of the greatest B-rolls I've come across, and not of objects, but more of people. And he is a living example of that. You don't need slow motions or fast forwarding to make good B-roll. He made it, especially if you see his Atomos Ninja 5 review, which I'm actually gonna reference later. But if you see that video, he actually showed what great B-rolls of people walking can look like, and he used the camera that actually we're gonna be talking about today. So again, I would say like he's a great photographer. He's a great cinematographer, and I do like his content. But just because I like someone doesn't mean I will never put my disagreement out there. And especially this is probably a healthy debate. A lot of people argue, want to fight about cameras, and me too. So in the video, the summary of the video was basically that he said the Canon EOS R is the most underrated camera of 2019. Right now, we're on 6 months into 2019, and even though it was almost a month ago he posted that, this would have been much more relevant if it was the most underrated camera of 2018, because the initial people reviews and reactions would say so. That then I would actually agree. But in 2019, I can actually argue that the Canon EOS R is actually one of the most overhyped camera. And let me tell you why. Well, he started off with the argument saying that a lot of people initial reactions were that the specs were not up to par, that the expectations were kind of disappointing from the get-go once we knew on paper what the Canon EOS R was bringing. And a lot of people surprised when they used the camera that specs aren't everything. Oh my god, wow, right? But yes, specs does not mean everything, and people were shocked of how great of a camera it was and how versatile for their setup it worked. And yeah, that makes sense, and it's still a great camera. But I was one of the people that know that it was going to be a great camera. It's from Canon. Like even if they put out everything that is exactly from the Canon 60D or 60 Mark II and just made that mirrorless, that would be a great camera. Or even actually, I know people, if they made a full frame version of the T7i, same everything, and put it into a full frame, it would have been great. It would have been exactly what I was expecting. And why I say that was because the autofocus. Anything new from Canon is going to have better and better autofocus. They are king of autofocus. So people saying that it was underwhelming what the camera will provide, I'm not sure where they were getting that from. Because you don't just see what's on paper. These are very seasoned photographers and cinematographers, and according to the track records and the history of Canon, you kind of can expect what's in the EOS R right now is kind of what's expected from them. It's a great all-around camera, just like most of their other cameras. And when I say all around, I mean just it hits the basics of what will make a good camera, and it just does it well. And in 2019, we were very saturated on YouTube of the glory of the EOS R. The only thing, the biggest downside people were finding was the crop 4K, but people were using either just Maddie was using 1080p and upscaling to 4K, and he's finding the bit rate of the videos to actually compensate and really make the footage look like true 4K. And then there's other people that would just shoot straight 1080p, like Potato Jet, and they would just maximize the camera through that sense by also using C-Log and just color grading it and really bringing out the camera. And that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of videos talking about this camera, talking about what a sneaking surprise it was of how good it was. And I'll say this. That there were so many videos about like the review. There were so many videos of like oh, the Canon EOS R surprised me, or the Canon EOS R, am I switching? Or the Canon EOS R versus these cameras, which are the competitors, full frame mirrorless. And then also whenever another mirrorless camera come out that's full frame, like the Z6, a video come out talking about comparing it to the Canon, or the Sony's, of course, yeah. But what also boosted a lot of videos and a lot of people talking about this camera was the mount that allowed for a variable ND filter to slide in, or a circular polarizer, and also the very fact that it comes with 10-bit, which is actually great. I will say this. I'm a Sony lover, and that kind of makes me jealous to know that it has 10-bit. But I also detract because it crops in 4K. So if only best of both worlds have 10-bit 4K full frame. But I digress. But having 10-bit through external recording, so you can put a Atomos Ninja 5 on it, like I said earlier, check out that video from Maddie Hapoya. Putting that external monitor on there and also having that ND filter, variable ND filter, people have been calling it, like Armando and Maddie, they've been calling it the mini C200 because you can put any lens, even if it has a concave element like the 11 millimeter and 14 millimeter, and that really can't put on ND filters. You can use all the lens you want, and also you can record in 4K 10-bit. And people were saying that the colors and the autofocus really is bringing it very similar to the C200, and just saying that it makes either a mini C200 or a B cam, a perfect B cam to the C200. And that's actually what is trending about this camera, was the fact that a good amount of YouTubers are, self-recording like me. I record myself, self-recording videographers. They recorded some video of some kind, and if they're not recording people with a smaller camera, they're at home or their office recording with a bigger, more pro level camera. And being by yourself, you don't have anyone to follow your focus. You have no one to check if you're in focus, and a lot of time it is just difficult to try to keep yourself in focus. And focus breathing is a big problem when it comes to video, because they're very fast and abruptive, and they're not very smooth. So they kind of they all commonly buy a pro level, cinema level camera that will give them 4K, even 4K raw. A lot of them choose to, and just to have just that much better of a video, and better, crispier video equal, like more of engagement, and you get more eyes on you that way. They picked the C200 for the autofocus. Most YouTubers that has a cinema level of gear, I guarantee 90% of them has a C200 or C300. Unbox Therapy has like C500s. It has a couple of them actually. Even Marcus Brownlee with his red cameras, he has actually multiple. He also has a C200 or quote me if correct me if I'm wrong in the description below. I'm not sure which one he has, but he has a camera cinema. He has a cinema Canon camera, and so does Jonathan Morris and Peter McKinnon, Matty Poya, and again, that's what I mean. Like 90% of the people who have cinema level gear has a C200 because they use it to record themselves, and they rely on that autofocus being that hangs in there, no breathing and no misfocusing. And having a Canon camera that's very similar to it brings it into such a harnessing workflow. The only YouTuber I know that has a C200 and a non-Canon SLR or a mirrorless camera or a DSLR, Matt Davala is the only person that I know that carries Sony mirrorless cameras and has a C200 is Matt Davala, and he is more of a he's his own editor, so having cameras that works in complete sync with each other is not that big of an issue to him because he records and edits his own video. But that goes into what I'm saying is like the Canon EOS R is a popular option because people are already in the Canon EOS ecosystem and they're using something that is so similar, and having features and having to put features in that camera that makes it even more of a workflow similar to the C200, like variable ND, 10-bit recording, and having it as a smaller package. People were picking up this camera for that reason. The bigger YouTuber, and because they're the bigger YouTuber, that influence other people, and also that influence other YouTubers to talk about this topic. Because if it's trending, people are also going to talk about what's trending as well. And that combined with the new RF mount lenses that are coming out, like a lot of them are pretty expensive, but they do exceptional work in getting the common stops down by like a half stop lower. So a lot of their RF lenses are 1.2s, and also what usually the 28 to 70 what usually is a 2.8. It's at a fixed f2 through the whole focal length. It's been on record to be very sharp and also very responsive to autofocus. Did I mention that they're expensive? A Canon 50mm f 1.2, and usually the common is actually f 1.8, and pushing it to the Sigma Art lenses, which would be 1.4. This really did something by pushing it to 1.2. Is there going to be a big difference they're going to notice and see? Not really, but it is better. It is a half stop faster, and in low light that'll actually speak volumes, and it's very useful. But I mean, it's expensive. Like I gotta say this, Canon EOS R $23.99. These RF mount lenses, of course, you use your old Canon lenses with an adapter and it worked just fine. But these lenses that are starting off at like the 2000s for a basic lens. So the Nifty 50, like I said it before, 1.2 50mm is $2,700. My Nifty 50, which is on my camera right now, is $199, $200, and this Nifty 50 costs more than the body of the camera itself. And also, oh yeah, by the way, the EOS R is more expensive than the A7 III, which again, in my opinion, I find as the better camera. And I'll do another video if you guys want me to compare them to and why I believe in Sony, and also what drives my biased opinion. I'll definitely make a video if you guys want to. But as I was saying, together, with the EOS R and the Nifty 50, $5,000. $5,000. That is ridiculously expensive. Also, to get the setup and everything that people have been talking about, to really get that more of a cinema or more of a pro level of of a workflow, you're talking about like $6,000. And then these a lot of people are not mentioning this because their other cameras, their zoom cameras are the zoom the 28 to 70, that's $3,000. The amount of people that talk about it on YouTube, the amount of people that are using it in their workflow and saying that uh it integrates well with what they're working with, the amount of people that saying, oh, make a video saying the name of the camera and am I switching following, the amount of people that say this camera is better than I thought, the amount of people that are using this camera as a immediate reaction to compare to another camera that are coming out, and how much these cameras, the lens and the camera cost. That's what I would consider putting in the category of the most overrated camera of 2019. For me, the most underrated camera, the truly more underrated camera of 2019 is Nikon. Right now they're growing and like, it's getting more of a traction. I'm seeing Manny Ortiz using it, and then also Jared Poland is actually switched over and started using it. But that's two YouTubers that are kind of using it often. Most other people are just using it once for that intro video and then mentioning it, and also it was a gift from Nikon themselves, or they got it, or they're using it, borrowing it for a short time to compare it to the cameras and to give their impressions on it. But I consider that more of an underrated camera because it's a great and amazing camera, and no one's really using it that much. People are buying the Eos R and maining it as their main camera. They're keeping it. They're giving glory and a lot of testimonies of like why it shrunk down their form factor of their whole gear, and then also while providing better quality. I'm not seeing a lot of YouTubers that are switching their video gear to Nikon. If we're talking about the most underrated full frame camera, yeah, the most underrated full frame camera of 2019, in my opinion, is the Nikon Z6. And then if you're talking about the most underrated camera in general, the most underrated camera in 2019 would be more so the Fuji X-T30, because it's a cheaper, great, very affordable camera. I believe it's in the $1,400 range, and with a external monitor, just like the Canon, you can get 10-bit recording, and the dynamic range is there. It takes astounding photos. And again, what I mean, like, you have to, the people I'm seeing making videos on that camera either work for Fuji, or they're using it as a limited time review where they're borrowing it for a couple days, do as much as they can with their camera, get their impressions, give it back to them, and make their video and complete it. Those two cameras, Nikon and Fuji, are the more underrated cameras in my opinion of 2019. Even me as a Sony user, I actually originally was indecisive between Sony and Fuji. And the reason why I picked Sony was the ecosystem that I'm gonna head into with the Sony E-mount, and also I wanted full frame. If those two were not a factor, the 4K 10-bit recording that was in the XT30 would have won it for me. So when he made all these points that was giving glory to the camera and saying great things about the camera, these are points that a lot of other YouTubers did say as well. So saying that is the most underrated camera, I believe it was not well thought out enough. It could have been weaved through. He could have weaved through information a bit more to find out what camera would have been a better spot for most underrated. For me, it can easily land in as one of the most overrated camera. That's all I gotta say. Again, there's no hard insult or any type of firm disagreements with Maddie. Just that I disagree with the choice of camera for the video he picked. There are a couple other cameras I believe that would have been the most underrated. They don't necessarily have to be the most perfect, extremely well-rounded camera. Just a camera that's amazing at very few qualities that no one is talking about, and those would be the most underrated cameras. Thank you. Tell me what you think. Click that bell. Anyway, peace. Bye.